Right on time today. Good afternoon. We are pleased that Congress has been able to meet our defense spending requirement and come together on a 2-year spending bill. This still achieves our top priority, a much-needed increase in funding for our national defense. This deal also increases budget caps, ends the sequester, and provides certainty for the next 2 years. Defense spending will match the request made by the Pentagon and will reflect what the President signed into law with the National Defense Authorization Act. The bottom line is that thanks to President Trump, we can now have the strongest military we have ever had. Additionally, this deal increases the debt ceiling to March of 2019, which moves us away from crisis to crisis budgeting. It also ensures funding for our other critical priorities, including rebuilding America's crumbling infrastructure, tackling the opioids epidemic, and taking care of our great veterans. To discuss this agreement in more depth from a military perspective, we have Secretary Mattis here with us today. Secretary Mattis will come up to make a brief statement and take a few questions on the importance of funding our armed forces, and then I will be back up after him to answer questions on news the day. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thanks. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for taking time out of your schedules to be here today. I've spent the last day and a half on Capitol Hill briefing the members of Congress on our 2018 National Defense Strategy. I'm heartened that Congress recognizes the sobering effect of budgetary uncertainty on America's military and on the men and women who provide for our nation's defense. 2 days from now, I will visit our nation's first Security Force Assistance Brigade at Fort Benning as they prepare to deploy to Afghanistan. To advance the security of our nation, these troops are putting themselves in harm's way, in effect signing a blank check payable to the American people with their lives. Our military has been operating under debilitating continuing resolutions for more than 1,000 days during the last decade. During last week's State of the Union address, President Trump said, "Weakness is the surest path to conflict." In a world awash in change with increasing threats, there is no room for complacency. Failure to implement or fund the 2018 National Defense Strategy will leave us with a force that could dominate the last war, yet be irrelevant to tomorrow's security. We need Congress to lift the defense spending caps and support a 2-year budget agreement for our military. America can afford survival. For too long, we have asked our military to carry on stoically with a success at any cost attitude. The fact that our volunteer military has performed so well is a credit to their dedication and professionalism. We expect the men and women of our military to be faithful in their service, even when going in harm's way. We have a duty to remain faithful to them. Absent a budget this year, America's military will not be able to provide pay for our troops by the end of the year. We will not be able to recruit the 15,000 Army soldiers and 4,000 Air Force airmen required to fill critical manning shortfalls. We would not be able to maintain our ships at sea with the proper balance between operations and time for training and maintenance. We would have to ground aircraft due to a lack of maintenance and spare parts, degrading our pilots' proficiency. We would deplete the ammunition, training, and manpower required to deter war. And we would delay contracts for vital acquisition programs necessary to modernize our force. I cannot overstate the negative impact to our troops and families' morale from all this budget uncertainty. Today's congressional action will ensure our military can defend our way of life, preserve the promise of prosperity, and pass on the freedoms you and I enjoy to the next generation. Thank you. I can take a couple questions here. Yes, sir.
General, how damaged would a shutdown be? Would a government shutdown be, given that we have this deal? If there was a decision to shut the government down because, for example, the wall wasn't funded in this deal, how bad would that be to the military?
Shutting down the government would be very damaging to the military for all the reasons I just cited about a continuing resolution, but then aggravated by the shutdown itself, where we actually send home all non-uniformed personnel except those in a few critical areas. It just paralyzes everything that we do if we go into that, other than the ongoing active operations at sea, and there the troops will continue to fight. The ships will stay at sea, but the bottom line is training's delayed. The impact just ripples through the force, and it doesn't just happen today. It ripples on as people who are not flying are no longer gaining the level of skill that you and I would associate with them even a year from now when they're promoted. Yes, sir.
Secretary, you mentioned you've been spending the last day and a half on Capitol Hill. This is a Senate arrangement. Do you have any sense, sir, if the House leadership on the Republican side is equally receptive and as enthusiastic as you are? And also, service secretaries, particularly the Navy Service Secretary, has said the funding problems are not maybe a direct cause, but contributed to the deaths of seamen in the South China Sea, the two most recent accidents. Can you tell the country, if this money is in fact provided, all of the problems associated with training, maintenance that have been plaguing the military will be eliminated?
I am optimistic that what the House did earlier this week and what the Senate did today can come together this week and give us the budget that then enables us to carry out our responsibilities. By ours, I mean all the leaders in the Department of Defense who will address the issues you just brought up. Obviously, a lot of work goes into the execution then, the quality of the training, but you can count on us. We'll earn your trust on this. We will spend the money wisely.
Mr. Secretary, if I could ask you about the recently released nuclear posture review.
Yes.
It calls for smaller yield nuclear weapons to be added to our arsenal. You're on record as saying there's no such thing as a tactical nuke. Anytime a nuclear weapon is used, it's a strategic game changer. So how does this new posture review add to global stability? Yeah. Because there are many people who believe that if you've got a smaller yield nuclear weapon, you might be more inclined to use it.
Right. Remember that what we're talking about here is the nuclear deterrent. And in that nuclear deterrent, we believe that some nations could miscalculate, one in particular, and that nation could assume that if they used in a conventional fight a small yield bomb, we would not respond with a very large yield bomb. Our response to this is to make a small yield bomb and say, don't miscalculate. It's a deterrent. Remember, deterrence is dynamic. It changes from year to year, from decade to decade. We have to address deterrence in its current construct. So we do this. The idea is to raise the threshold. Don't even think about lowering the threshold to a conventional fight and escalating it to one small yield nuclear weapon, strategically changing the game, and then think our choice is either surrender or suicide, as Dr. Kissinger put it. Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk about where things are in the planning stages for this military parade the President is seeking, and what any cost estimates you have at this point are?
I think we're all aware in this country of the President's affection and respect for the military. We've been putting together some options. We'll send them up to the White House for decision.
A question about North Korea, but I'd like to follow up on Catherine's question there. You just laid out the argument for fully funding the military, why you think every dollar counts. So why divert time, energy, financial resources to the planning of a parade, as the President has asked?
Again, I think that what my responsibility is to make certain I lay out the strategy and make the argument for the oversight of Congress to make a determination of fully funding us. As far as the parade goes, again, the President's respect, his fondness for the military, I think is reflected in him asking for these options. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, North Korea. Can I ask you whether you think that war is actually nearer or closer with North Korea than it was at the time the administration took office? And do you support any kind of meeting or communication between Vice President Pence and North Korean officials at the Olympics?
Well, on the second, Vice President Pence is quite capable of making the call on that while he's in Korea. As far as the situation with Korea, it is firmly in the diplomatic lane. We have seen much stronger diplomatic action. For example, the last 3 United Nations Security Council resolutions, unanimous. And how often do you see France and Russia, PRC, China, and the United States, Great Britain, all voting, and other countries all voting unanimously. I think that makes it very clear this is firmly in the diplomatic lane, and we, of course, back up Secretary of State Tillerson's foreign policy efforts as guided by the President with viable military options. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
One more on Syria.
Ready to go?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Due to the timing and tight timeline, we will jump right into questions for today with no further statements. Steve.
Nancy Pelosi is wanting to add immigration to this emerging budget deal on the Hill. Is that something the President would like to see?
I think we've made clear that the budget deal should be a budget deal, and that members of Congress, like Nancy Pelosi, should not hold our military hostage over a separate issue. We've laid out what we would like to see in immigration legislation, and I think it's something that Nancy Pelosi should support, and hopefully she will come on board. We can get this budget deal done, and then we can focus on getting an immigration deal done.
Follow up, is the President committed to this March 5th deadline for DACA, or is he going to extend the deadline?
Look, we are hopeful that we will make a deal with Congress, and we'll see what happens after that. But our goal is to try to get something done. We don't want to keep kicking the can down the road, and we'd like to see a solution, which is why we've laid out a plan that we think addresses everybody's concerns and meets those needs. Jordan?
Thanks, Sarah. To put another point on it, will the President sign the budget agreement that was laid out by the Senate this morning?
Look, we applaud the steps forward that they've made, but we're going to need to see what is in the final bill. But we're certainly happy with the direction that it's moving, particularly that we're moving away from the crisis budgeting that we've been on in the past. Major?
Would you like the House to pass the Senate deal?
We would like to move forward on this front, but again, we want to see the final components. But yes, we're supportive primarily because it meets several of the things that we laid out, including ending the crisis budgeting, and also helps meet the needs of the military and defense spending as were laid out by General Mattis.
Question, could you clarify the status, security clearance of Rob Porter, and if the President has confidence in him as a staff secretary?
I can give you two statements, as has always been our policy when it comes to security clearances. We don't comment on them. I'm not going to change that today. I can tell you that Rob has been effective in his role as staff secretary, and the President and Chief of Staff have had full confidence and trust in his abilities and his performance. In a more of an update on that front, Rob has put out a statement which I can read to you now, and I think it will address some of those other questions. These outrageous allegations are simply false. I took the photos given to the media nearly 15 years ago, and the reality behind them is nowhere close to what is being described. I've been transparent and truthful about these vile claims, but I will not further engage publicly with a coordinated smear campaign. My commitment to public service speaks for itself. I've always put duty to country first and treated others with respect. I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to have served in the Trump administration and will seek to ensure a smooth transition when I leave the White House.
Sarah, is he going to be leaving the White House anytime soon? There was some conversation a couple of months ago that he was at least contemplating that.
He is going to be leaving the White House. It won't be immediate, but he is resigning from the White House, but is going to stay on to ensure that there's a smooth transition moving forward from here.
Sarah, thanks. Less than 18 hours ago, the White House released several statements praising Rob Porter, his service. Obviously, he's somebody who's very close with the President. So why would the President accept his resignation if the President thinks he did nothing wrong?
Look, I think that was a personal decision that Rob made, and one that he was not pressured to do, but one that he made on his own. Catherine?
Can we clear up the matter of the security clearance? Did he have one or not?
As I just said, I'm not sure why this is complicated. We've addressed it quite a few times in many circumstances. As has always been the policy at the White House, we don't discuss security clearances one way or the other. John?
Sarah, can I ask you about the Democratic Memo? We understand, and Chief of Staff Kelly illuminated this yesterday, that this memo is different in terms of its content than the Republican memo was. General Kelly said it's not as clean as the GOP memo was. Republicans who have read the memo are saying that it contains a number of references to sources and methods. My question to you is, do you believe that the White House is I don't want to say being sandbagged, but being put in a difficult position by the Democratic minority, forcing you to make redactions or hold back this memo so it can draw a contrast with your treatment of the GOP memo?
I'm not going to make speculations at this point. We're still going through the process that we went through with the Republican memo. We're going to continue to do that, and once that's completed, we'll have something further to add. But as of this point, we don't. John?
Sir, can you clarify, the president yesterday said that he would like to shut the government down if he doesn't get funding for the wall, border security. Is what he said yesterday now no longer operative? He's going to support a 2-year spending bill without funding for the wall?
Look, as I said yesterday, the focus for us has always been to get a 2-year budget deal. We've also laid out what the priorities that we want to see in any immigration legislation, and we expect to see that. We do want to, that we've made no secret, the president wants funding for the wall and he wants border security, and we expect to see that reflected in the budget.
He said he wanted to shut the government down if he didn't get it. Now that's no longer operative? Is that no longer the position?
No, the position hasn't changed, and I addressed this yesterday. The president is making the point, the only people that have shut the government down are the Democrats. We haven't shut the government down. We've laid out exactly what we want to happen, and we're working towards achieving those goals.
He was the one that said he wanted to shut the government down. I'm not understanding.
Look,
he said, I want a government shutdown.
The point he's making when you put it in the context is that if we are going to have that fight, it's a fight that the Democrats started last time and they lost, and we think that we would win again. We want a 2-year budget deal. We want an immigration plan that fixes the problem and doesn't further kick the can down the road. Those are the two focuses, and we're hopeful we'll get those done.
How can the president still have confidence in his deputy attorney general when he said he feels vindicated in the Russia probe by the Nunes memo that mentions Rosenstein and the fact that Rosenstein oversees the Russia probe?
Look, as I said yesterday, the president feels vindicated because he feels like the Russia investigation has been politically motivated witch hunt for the last year, and the memo clearly vindicates the president's position that there was political bias.
Has he actually read the Democrats' memo? You said he has seen it, but has he actually read?
He has, and I told you also that he had met with the deputy attorney general to discuss the differences yesterday.
And just really quickly, General Mattis was saying that the president has great affection for the military, but he has yet to visit Iraq and Afghanistan. Wouldn't that be the ultimate way to honor the troops, by going there rather than a parade?
Look, I think there are a lot of different ways. Nothing has been decided or locked in stone. This is in the early discussion phases, and it's something the president is looking at, not just a way that he can, but that the entire country can come together and show support and honor our military. Cecilia.
Thanks. Does the president have any concerns about these domestic violence allegations raised against Rob Porter?
I haven't spoken to him about specific concerns.
You haven't talked to the president about this?
About whether or not he has specific concerns, I haven't asked him that question, Cecilia.
Have you seen the photos of Rob Porter's ex-wife with a black eye?
I don't know.
Sarah. Thanks a lot, Sarah. The president weighed in today on Twitter on the stock market, the first time this week. He's done so, and he's done so quite a bit over the course of his first year in office. Will we expect the president to continue to weigh in on the daily fluctuations on the stock market going forward, or will he sort of let the market take its course?
I don't think I'm going to speculate on what we may weigh in on every single day moving forward through the administration, but the economy has obviously been a big focus for the administration, and it's something we're going to continue to talk about. We have a very strong economy. We feel very confident in the direction that we're moving, and certainly the focus on the long-term economic fundamentals that this administration has been advocating for.
On the immigration deal, would the president be open to the idea of just 2 pillars of what he's put forward being part of an immigration deal, that being funding for that border wall with Mexico, an increased border security, and then, of course, a legislative fix for those DACA recipients?
We've laid out the 4 pillars that we want to see in immigration legislation. Shannon.
The president today called these text messages from the FBI bombshells. Does he believe there was a conspiracy in the FBI to try and undermine his candidacy, to try and help Hillary Clinton? Can you explain a little bit more his thinking about what he's seen in these text messages?
I think it just further shows that there is reason for all of us to have great cause for concern in this process, and we hope that it's more thoroughly and fully looked at as we move forward.
Just quickly on the FBI, are there some more specific changes, personnel changes you'd like to see at the FBI?
Not that I'm aware of at this time. Stephen.
I just want to give you a chance to respond to the concerns about the propriety of this parade down Pennsylvania Avenue. A lot of people in the country think that that's not how the American military should be presented to the world, rolling tanks down America's Main Street. What do you think?
Look, as I said, we haven't made a final decision. The president's simply exploring different ways that he can highlight and show the pride that we have in the military, the people that have served and sacrificed to allow us all of the freedoms that we have. The president is very proud of the United States military and all that they do on behalf of all of us, and we're simply exploring options. I think it's way too far speculation to start weighing in on, whether or not we think certain things are appropriate when nothing has been decided and it's literally in a brainstorming session.
Is it true that the report that the president essentially gave a directive to the Defense Department that this is something that must happen?
No, the president asked them to look at different ways and explore and see what those options look like, as the secretary said. Take one last question.
Sarah, to follow up on these text messages, does the president believe that former President Obama was involved in the investigation, the Russian investigation against him, which is what alleged between those texts between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page?
I'm not aware of that specific concern, but I think that there is a lot within those text messages that gives us great cause for concern, and we, again, hope that they look at them thoroughly and investigate this process more fully. Thanks so much, guys.
That was the White House press briefing with Sarah Sanders. I am Steve Lookner. This is Right Side Broadcasting's live post-show of the White House press briefing, where we take your comments and hear what you have to say about the press briefing. Write to me on Twitter. I am at @Lookner, at LOOKNER. Want to hear what you thought about the briefing. And what else was I going to say? I guess this was one of these briefings where, if you look about, if you look at what the topics being asked were, if you've watched our coverage of the briefings before, something that gets me a little upset is when in the briefings they ask questions on topics that I think are not the most important topics in terms of importance for the American people, and So today, a fair amount of the topics questions were asked about the military parade and Staff Secretary Rob Porter. So that was a fair amount of the questions, and it's aren't there other things besides those two things that maybe should have I didn't hear any. I'd be interested in hearing questions about, North Korea has a military parade coming up. Oh, there's a black screen. How lovely. Hooray, black screen, YouTube. Anyways, so hey guys, if you see a black screen from YouTube, that's YouTube's fault. Stupid YouTube never fixes it. It's been 9 months already. For some reason, they don't want to fix it. But it's going to be a few seconds. If you see a black screen, ignore it, and we're not going anywhere. And you can keep watching, and I'll be here. So I would like to hear what you thought about the briefing, though. Write to me at @Lookner on Twitter, @Lookner on Twitter. We're going to be talking about some of the things they talked about in the briefing. And just to catch you up, in case you didn't hear this, shortly before the briefing, the Senate reached a budget deal, and the basic idea of this budget deal, if I can remember right, is it's roughly a 2-year deal. It's about 2 years. I think I'm not sure on the exact timing, but I know it's fiscal year 2018 and 2019. So that would 2017, 2018. So that would take us all the way until September of 2018. They wouldn't have to, there's already been. They don't have a budget deal yet for fiscal year 2017, which is already we're already 4 months in. And that's why every month or so they've had to get together and come up with this short-term spending resolution. And there was a shutdown a month ago. And so if they pass this budget deal, that'll mean that'll guarantee no shutdowns and no brinksmanship spending negotiations until, later on in 2018. So that would be nice. And then the budget deal, also the Senate budget deal, would increase military spending, I want to say by around $80 million each of the next 2 years. And it would also increase domestic spending by slightly less than that, like $60 billion or so each of the next 2 years, or this year and next year. And finally, there'd be, I think, around $80 billion for disaster relief spending. So we're talking about like $300 billion in new spending. And also no immigration stuff, no DACA stuff in this budget deal that the Senate the Senate has agreed on today. Now, there's questions as to whether the House is going to approve this budget deal because some Democrats in the House are really mad that this budget deal doesn't have any kind of DACA fix and is not no protections for the Dreamers in this budget deal. And some Republicans are mad that this budget deal would just spend a lot more money. And there are a number of House members who are fiscal conservatives who want us to be cutting spending rather than increasing spending. So, hey, by the way, guys, I want to just say really quick, because this annoying black screen is happening. Let me just show you something really quick, guys. You know, we're getting these black screens because YouTube never fixes this problem because they don't care about us. But I want to show you something you can do if you want to complain to YouTube about the black screen. Here we go. So let me just show you this real quick. If you're annoyed about these black screens, what you can do is see this is our broadcast, and all I did is I went back a few seconds and I paused it on the black screen. And all you got to do is right-click on the screen. Okay, once you've done that, right-click, click on Troubleshoot Playback Issue. And when you click on it, look what happens. A feedback form comes up. And it already includes a screenshot. So all you have to do is type in your feedback and then press send, which is at the bottom. And it's like, you could just type in, why don't you ever fix these black screens on right side? Are you censoring them? Fix it. It's so annoying. Jeez. And then you can just press send at the bottom. So I would, if you want to help get those fixed, I would encourage you all to, oh, and there's another one. Another one. Look at this. Look what's happening today. Hooray! Hooray! YouTube never fixes it. YouTube never fixes it. I'm guessing because we have a more conservative audience. So there's really no excuse for it. It only happens on our channel. YouTube, again, I can't imagine that if this were on some big channel, non-conservative channel, they wouldn't fix it for 9 months. But YouTube never fixes it. So that's what I would do. I would do this. I would go back, pause it on the black screen, right-click, click on Troubleshoot Playback Issue, and then you can fill out your form and send it to YouTube. It's really ridiculous. I'm really apologize that you guys all tuned in. You want to see a post show, and you can't even watch the post show for the White House press briefing because YouTube is sticking black screens on it. So I'm sorry. You know, it sucked. We haven't even gotten to your comments yet. I'm just trying to cover the news. Okay, so let's get to some of your comments here. Andy T, thank you, Andy T, for tweeting to YouTube about the black screens. I appreciate it. You can also tweet to @TeamYouTube and @YouTube and include a screenshot if you want and say, why can't you fix this? Let's see. Dale Netherton writes, why do these arrogant reporters get the information that they can claim many people's... Where do these arrogant reporters get the information that they can claim many people say? Everyone loves a parade. So you think, Dale, a number of the reporters seem to be skeptical of this idea of a military parade. President Trump has said... has reportedly said he wants there to be a military parade. He has directed... the military to look into the idea of having a big military parade, like the parade they had in France when he visited there. He wants to have one here, although Sarah Sanders said this was just an explorational, this was just brainstorming. They have not committed to having one yet. And there were some questions in the White House press briefing like, hey, isn't that a diversion from what the military should be doing? So I don't know, a diversion of resources and time and energy. So I don't know what you think about that. Feel free to write to me and let me know. Dan Canepa made a donation. Dan Canepa said, thank you, Dan. Dan says, I know it's not funny, but you got YouTubed while trying to explain how to post to YouTube and complain about the YouTube black screen logo. Yeah, you're right, Dan. That doesn't always happen. It happens a lot. When I'm explaining how to complain to YouTube, YouTube puts another black screen up. Hashtag buy wall bonds. Thank you, Dan. And thank you for the donations. Flat Earth Genius made a donation and said, the God Emperor, very stable genius, is the savior of our civilization. Press 1 if you agree. And Joshua Schmidtke made a donation and said, how long before mainstream media calls President Trump a dictator for wanting a parade? Do it for Memorial Day, have a speech. Hashtag Farmer $5 challenge. Hashtag RSBN app. Thank you very much for those donations. We are viewer supported, so if you want to donate to Right Side, if you enjoy our coverage, if you like having an alternative to the mainstream media, please go to the bottom of the YouTube chat and click on the $ at the bottom of the YouTube chat. You can also go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. So we are reading your comments about the White House press briefing we just saw. Would love to hear from you, hear what you thought. Write to me on Twitter, at Lookner, at Lookner. Let me know what you thought about the press briefing. Jams writes in, fourth YouTube black screen that he saw. I'm sorry, Jams. It's not our fault. It's YouTube's fault. He or she saw that. Kevin Buffel writes in, military parade, absolutely. You know, there is this thing I've been reading some news coverage of the military parade. And I've read a couple of stories, and the stories in the mainstream media tend to say, President Trump is ordering this. Like there was this one, I should show you the one, was it the New York Times story? My point was going to be, the news stories I've read tend to focus on the possible negatives of a military parade while not exploring what positives there might be. Now, I'm not taking an opinion and a side one way or the other. I would just think that if you were going to write a neutral news story, what you'd say is, well, here's some possible negatives of the military parade, but here's something positive. And on the positive side, you might say, maybe Americans like it. Some Americans like it. Maybe it helps, maybe it helps the military feel supported. Maybe it helps people feel patriotic. I don't know. There might be different reasons people like it. There's reasons people have raised why some people might not like the parade. They might say, well, it's a diversion of resources. That's unnecessary. They might make America look too militaristic in a way we don't want to look on the international stage. I don't know, but it's just interesting to me when you see these articles. The ones I've read don't really explore the possible positives. They just explore the negatives. See if I can find that one article I was reading. Just before we came on the air, I was reading an article about this. Like here's one from the Washington Post. I think this is the one I was looking at. But of course it has an autoplay video, which I can't stop. All right. Why Trump's military parade won't be like the one in France. And what this one says, so the lead of this article in the Washington Post is, Russian President Vladimir Putin has them. So does North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and French President Emmanuel Macron. So the first two people it mentions are Putin and Kim Jong-un. And then it argues that this won't be like the one in France. President Trump says, I wanted one like the one in France. A military official said, President Trump said, I want a parade like the one in France. And then the article says, well, the one in France has this 100-year tradition and we don't have that. But what it doesn't do in this article, defense analysts worried whether the president's possible misunderstanding of military traditions was a sign of a broader problem. Let's see here. So this is very negative, this article. But so what you don't see in this article, you see a lot of possible negatives from the military parade. You don't see what's the positive argument. What could people like about it? Why might it be helpful to have one? Or why might somebody think that? Why might somebody think there's a good argument for having a parade? So pretty negative article right here. Not really balanced. You don't really get both sides in this article. So I've read some articles like that. Anyways. Going to read some more. David Opp says, because of keywords, maybe you should change your name from right side to center side. I think what David is saying is when the word right is in the name, maybe you have YouTube doing things, bad things to us because of the keyword right. Elizabeth Burwell writes in, love the YouTube black screen, not. So another story, so anyways, I want to hear if you guys have any more comments on this briefing. Oh, Greg writes in on the military parade, Greg Jackson. Greg Jackson says, even though the Putz Ralph Peters condemned the idea of a military parade, as a military veteran who was called a baby killer, I would be ecstatic having such a parade. No one can explain the amount of pride it would show to those like myself. It's a testament to the country of the pride of those who served. It's a community that cannot be understood unless you've been there. Thank you for writing in, Greg. So several of you have written in and said you'd like a military parade. And look, I've heard arguments on both sides. As I said before, what I was saying is just in the coverage I've seen in the mainstream media, I tend to see a lot more discussion of the arguments against a military parade than the arguments for a parade. And that's just, I mean, I think you can talk about both and not take a side, but that's what I haven't been seeing that. I want to talk real quick about this Rob Porter story because when they were talking about it, you know, I keep up with the news, and they started talking about Rob Porter in the briefing, and I was like, wait a second, what's going on here? So let me just catch you up on the whole Rob Porter story so you know what's going on with that, because that was asked about a couple times in the briefing. So this came out just today. This article was posted 16 minutes ago. White House Staff Secretary Rob Porter resigns amid abuse allegations. It's from Axios, and they say, White House Staff Secretary Rob Porter resigned today, although Sarah Sanders said he's not leaving yet. He's resigned but not leaving yet. He resigned today after his two ex-wives came forward with abuse allegations. Now also Rob Porter you might have heard about because there's been gossip about him possibly dating Hope Hicks, who works in the White House. Anyways, they say Axios, nobody pressured him to resign. A White House official said senior officials were trying to convince Porter to stay and fight. Those officials included Chief of Staff John Kelly. And Rob Porter released a statement today, and Rob Porter's statement says, these outrageous allegations are simply false. I took the photos of my ex-wives, I believe he's saying here, given to the media nearly 15 years ago, and this might be one ex-wife. I'll show you the photos in a second. I took the photos given to the media nearly 15 years ago, and the reality behind them is nowhere near what is close to what is being described. I have been transparent and truthful about these vile claims, but I will not further engage publicly with a coordinated smear campaign. My commitment to public service speaks for itself. I have always put duty to country first and treated others with respect. I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to have served in the Trump administration and will seek to ensure a smooth transition when I leave the White House. So here are the allegations, in case you weren't familiar. Porter's first wife, Colby Holderness, alleged in an interview published Wednesday by the Daily Mail that he kicked her on their first honeymoon, progressing to choking and punching her in the face. She provided photos that were published with the story. And Porter's second wife, Jennifer Willoughby, told the Daily Mail earlier this week that he pulled her naked from the shower shortly after their first anniversary and that he was verbally abusive. The Daily Mail also obtained a police complaint from 2010 of Porter allegedly punching the glass on a door at their home, which led to her filing a temporary restraining order. And anyways, Porter and Kelly were in charge of reviewing all information before it reached President Trump. Porter served as Orrin Hatch's chief of staff before entering the White House. And Porter had good relationships across the ideological spectrum of the White House, from Stephen Miller to Gary Cohn, was one of Kelly's most trusted aides and was was in charge of the weekly trade policy meetings. As reported in January in Axios, he had been receiving overtures from big companies and groups that wanted to poach him from the White House. So maybe he's going to take a job in the private sector. Kelly and White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders defended Porter on Tuesday. Yesterday, Chief of Staff Kelly said, Porter is a man of integrity and honor, and I can't say enough good things about him. He is a friend, a confidant, and a trusted professional. I am proud to serve alongside him. And Sarah Sanders said some called him someone of the highest integrity and exemplary character. And then, anyways, and just real quick, if you can, I'm not going to linger on this, but if you want to see the photos that were out about him, that was like a photo in the Daily Mail. I'll show it real quick. So if you want to see more on this, go to the Daily Mail article, which is linked to in the Axios story. But there were a number of questions on that. And as I said, not that that's something not worth a question, but there were lots of questions on that and on the military parade. Something I thought I would have loved to have heard questions on were, look, speaking of military parades, I didn't hear any questions about the North Korea's military parade. North Korea is supposed to have a big military parade, I think, is it tonight? I have to check on tonight or tomorrow. Or maybe it's tomorrow, which is tonight our time. I think that might be the case. And that's like the day before the Olympics starts. So it's this kind of odd thing where they're going to the Olympics, North Korea, and they're making nice with South Korea recently in a number of ways. Oops. But at the same time, they're having this big military parade tomorrow. So I would have liked to have heard a question about what the White House thinks about that. But I don't believe there was a question about the North Korean military parade. Barry George, one of our viewers, writes in and says, I fully support the parade. God bless our troops. Hey, if you have comments on the parade, on the Rob Porter story, on any of the other things Sarah Sanders talked about, give me a shout on Twitter, @Lookner, @LOOKNER. Also, thank you to our moderators for moderating today. We got Barbara Braley, Real Frank, JC, Common Sense and Gleno on the website. Hey, I'm a Carrot made a donation. I'm a Carrot said, I support military parades with all the UFOs. I forget. UFO stands for something, doesn't it? What is it? I forget. Not unidentified flying object. I mean, there's another one. Somebody let me know. I feel like I've looked this up before. Anyways. But a number of you seem to support the idea of a military parade. Anyway, Sarah Sanders said they were looking into it, but they weren't sure. But they weren't committed to having it yet. That to me, though, once again, as I've said before, if there's some kind of story out there that the press thinks can make President Trump look bad, it's highly likely that that story could get way more attention than its actual in the media than its actual newsworthiness warrants. And military parade, to me, is one of these stories. Also in the briefing, just to mention some other things discussed. Let me just say this. If the budget deal, so the Senate has reached this budget deal, nothing's been passed by both the House and the Senate yet. So the House and the Senate still need to pass a spending deal by the end of the day, end of the evening tomorrow, to avoid a shutdown. So we will, if there's no deal by tomorrow night, we of course will come live and cover this. Hopefully there won't be a shutdown, but we will keep our eye on it. I will post on my Twitter if I hear anything breaking on this. You can follow me on Twitter at @Lookner, @LOOKNER. And also thank you to Joe Seals, Right Side CEO, for producing today. Joe is producing, dealing with all the obstacles YouTube is throwing in our way. Thank you, Joe. And you can follow Joe Seals on Twitter at Joe Seals, SEALES. And speaking of the Seals on Twitter, you can follow our head moderator, Jude Seals, on Twitter at RSBN Moderator, and Jacob Seals, who does the music for Right Side. You can follow him at Jacob RSBN Music. There was a question on whether President Trump is going back on his pledge or his threat to not approve a budget deal without wall funding in it. And basically it sounds like, from what Sarah Sanders was saying, they're looking to get the wall funding now in an immigration bill that would be passed after this budget deal is passed. That's the bill that might have DACA protections in it. Might do something about might have some changes to chain migration in it. But that supposedly is going to be discussed. Mitch McConnell has said that he has promised that there will be an open debate on immigration policy in the Senate after a budget deal is passed. So that'll just be senators taking the floor and just saying stuff about immigration policy. Should be interesting. That doesn't happen that much in the Senate these days, where you just have an open debate on something. See if there are any more comments from you guys here. Deplorable Dolores writes in, as a U.S. Army veteran, thank you for your service, by the way, Greg Jackson and Deplorable Dolores. As a U.S. Army veteran, I fully support the military parade. It is about time we show our mighty, mighty force. President Trump, finally we have a president that truly loves and appreciates our military. I can't wait. So a number of you are in support of this military parade. You watch the mainstream media coverage, and you think, like, it makes it sound like military parade is a crazy idea that no one really supports except President Trump. But I've just heard from like 5 or 6 of you who really support it. So I'm not judging whether we should have one or not. All I'm saying is the military, the media coverage on military parade is a bit one-sided. What was I going to show you? Oh, I wanted to show you something interesting which I saw, which I hadn't really seen reported much in the media. Maybe it will be. But look at this new Politico poll on President Trump's ratings. Approval rating. He is up to, according to Politico Morning Consult, he is up to 45%. Now, this came out yesterday. The first I heard about this was about a half hour ago in a tweet of someone I follow. So those are certainly better numbers for President Trump. I mean, he was in the mid to low 30s even a few weeks ago. So those are better numbers. Haven't seen them report on them much. I follow a lot of news. The first I heard of it was today. So just letting you know if you hadn't heard about those numbers. This was in Politico. You can read about it there. Also, it's a little weird. The lead says most Americans think President Trump isn't doing a good job. Well, most is 51%. 51% is more like half of Americans, not most. You don't usually use the word most to describe 51%, but they say most Americans. What? It seems kind of odd. All right, I'm going to make last call for comments on this broadcast. If you have comments, get them in now. Let me know what you're thinking about the press briefing, about the issues of today. Write to me on Twitter, at Lookner, at Lookner. Of course, if there's big news, we will come on later today with breaking news. So subscribe to us on YouTube and click the notifications bell when you subscribe. Also, you can follow us on Facebook at Right Side Broadcasting and on Twitter at RSB Network. Also, so I believe that North Korean military parade is I think it's tonight, America time, tomorrow, North Korea time. I'm going to check into it. If we find out we can show that to you, we will. I'm not sure if we will have a feed of that which will be allowed to show you. But if we can, we will. So it's something I'm looking into. I'd like to show it to you, but I got to look into it and see. After I get off the broadcast, we'll do some more research on that. I'm just making sure we haven't missed any more breaking news while I've been on the air here. Drew writes in, Trump is not doing a military parade for the military. He is doing it for himself like Putin in Russia. So our viewer Drew thinks President Trump wants a military parade for himself and not for the military. Now, I know some of you disagree, but I appreciate you writing in, Drew, and sharing your opinion. Follow the White Rabbit has a comment on this story here. And his or her comment is, what would be the percentage if you took the sanctuary cities out of that 51%? So you think what you're saying is you think that 51% is a fair amount of that is like the sanctuary cities. That's our comment from our viewer. Follow the white rabbit. Oh, I also heard, I was talking about the budget deal before that the Senate reached. I heard a rumor, I haven't had this confirmed yet, that the Senate budget deal funds like the child insurance program for health insurance program for like 10 years, which would prevent that being, brinksmanship discussion, negotiations on that having to happen every so often. So that would be something. Just to avoid these right now with the spending, without a budget deal, there's these constant, every month or so you get this threat of a shutdown and a negotiation. So it would be nice to not have to worry about those for a little while. All right, I think I've gotten to all your comments. So I think we're going to wrap up this stream right now, our post-show coverage for the White House press briefing. Appreciate you joining us for this today. Thanks again to those who donated. Your donations are what keep us on the air. We can't stay on the air without your donations, so we very much appreciate it. If you want to donate, go to the bottom of the YouTube chat, click on that $sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat, or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. Every little donation helps so much. You can also get a free right side stuff like this right side mug by going to rsbn.tv/donate and setting up a monthly donation. Oh, also, I haven't mentioned this in a while. We get questions once in a while. Hey, can I get a right side t-shirt or something? So if you want right side gear, you know what to do? Go to TeePublic. TeePublic.com. TEE Public. Then you go to TeePublic here and you search RSBN and you click on, well, you can click on any of these things, but I'm going to click on the middle one. I think that's where most of the shirts are. Yeah, and you have all these different options on shirts, all these different colors. Why isn't it changing here? Look. These are just the t-shirts. This is just one model of the t-shirts, all different models. There's long sleeve shirts and baseball shirts and kids t-shirts and hoodies and stickers and wall art and mugs and pillows and all these kind of stuff. Just so you know, if you're interested in it. Subscribe to me on subscribe to us on YouTube, Right Side Broadcasting. Click the notifications bell so you get notified when we're coming on the air with our live videos. Follow us on Facebook, Right Side Broadcasting. Follow us on Twitter at RSB Network. Big shout out again to the moderators, Barbara Braley, JC, Webster, Real Frank, Common Sense, and Gleno on the website. Appreciate all your hard work. Joe Seals, great job producing, dealing with all of the YouTube crap. Thank you, Joe Seals, Right Side CEO. Follow Joe at Joe Seals on Twitter, at Joe, Seales. And I will post about breaking news throughout the day, as I always do. You can follow me on Twitter, at Lookner, at Lookner. Ha! Swoosh for Trump says RSBN My Pillow. I don't think we're going to be doing RSBN My Pillow anytime soon. But it's an interesting idea, Swoosh for Trump. Let's see here. Tia Marie says, I'm getting a t-shirt. Now, just so people know, we have different preferences here. Jake likes the regular t-shirts, and I like the extra soft ones. When it comes to these t-shirts, I'm kind of a baby, and I like all the extra. I like really extra soft t-shirts. But there's different models of t-shirts, so you can look in yourself. Let me recommend one shirt, though, because this is the one I get, and I think it's great. It is the shirt I get is the extra soft. Now, it costs extra. Now, here's a pro tip. I usually wait till they're on sale. Every week or two, TeePublic has a sale where I think they're like 25% off. So I've bought all my shirts during the sales. If you keep checking, they have sales. And then I get the extra soft one, and I get the Navy Heather. It's a very pretty shirt, the Navy Heather. It's that one right there. I have all three of these in extra soft, but the Navy Heather is the one I like the best. So, but they do have sales periodically. Thank you, Nicholas Brown. Thank you, I'm a Carrot. I'm a Carrot wants her to be a baby Lookner plushie. Well, we'll see. K Philly, thank you. Jerry loves his. Jerry says, I love my RSBN shirts. Light Switch, thank you. Patty Pacina. Yes, there are hoodies on that page, Patty Pacina. There are hoodies. Look, it says hoodie. Right here. On the right. See, it says hoodie there. Thank you, Light Switch. Thank you, Trolita. Thank you, Nicholas Brown. Thank you, Luciferin. Light Switch says, Light Switch wants a pillow. Light Switch, I don't even know if you're a he or a she. I don't think I've ever known that. I don't really, it's fine either way. I don't care, but if you want to tell me, you can. Whiskey Bay says, Steve sounds like Bill O'Reilly selling stuff. We do not do that much on this. With O'Reilly, they used to do it every show. We do it, I probably remember to do it once every 2.5 weeks. But we get messages. People write to me and say, hey, where can we buy this stuff? Thanks, Nicholas Brown, for subbing to us. Woody M, good question. Woody M says, why not address the national debt? Why should we not pay off the debt before a budget? Some House Republicans are going to say just that. They're going to say, why are we spending all this more money in the spending bill? See, I would have liked to have heard more questions about that and fewer questions about the military parade and Rob Porter. Thank you, DM. Thank you, Maria Runkles. Thank you, Patty. Let's see. What is this? Joe, I don't understand the message I just got from you. Was that for me? Maybe Joe will explain what he just said to me. I'm confused. Thank you, Maxwell Smart. Thank you, Chrissy Elaine. Thank you, Dennis Casey. Thank you, Arette. Thank you, Trees Climbing Gear. Oh, Joe says, name in town if you wish to opine. Why don't I remember that? He says that's what O'Reilly used to say at the end of the show. A lot of times I would listen to O'Reilly, I would hear him, I'd have my Sirius radio on in the car, and I wouldn't hear that at the end of the show. I'd get bits, I'd get sort of excerpts from it. Jerry OOG says coffee tastes so much better from an RSBN mug. Okay. All right, we're going to wrap this up now. We're done. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, moderators. Thank you, donors. Thank you, people. Thank you, people who wrote in. I love when people write in and let us read their comments. So thank you, everybody who wrote in and with your comments. We will see you soon with more news, but we hope you have a great day wherever you are. From all of us here at Right Side, I am Steve Lookner. Thank you for joining us for our coverage today. Have a good one, and we'll see you soon here at RSBN.